Have you ever found yourself in an environment where someone says that they're healing and they really, really seem to be trying, but you just don't see the results? So you're having this battle of internal trust, like, how long do I sit and wait this out? Well, I'm sure that you've been on the other end of that. So today we're going to be talking about how to respect and honor people's path to healing. My name is Garza-Keith. I'm a Chicana artist activist in Rica, and I am here to help you. I do have my fancy notebook right here full of my notes, and so if I look down, that is all I'm doing. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and let's get into it. So, healing is obviously all over the place. Like, everyone has their own path, everyone has their own ways of moving throughout it and different ways of dealing with it. Some people choose faith, like God, Bible, or some people choose family and community. Some people choose isolation and self-reflection. There's a lot of different ways that it can look like. And sometimes it's really hard to recognize that in other people, especially when we're just moving through the day-to-day. It's like we got a 9 to 5, we got things to check off our to-do list and whatnot, and we're like trying to move in these ways and then totally dismissing the fact that we're dealing with humans. Just like you are. You probably have had some rough days that how you have been met with a lot of disrespect for no other reason than you were just having a rough day. And you weren't going to explain yourself to every stranger, like, this is why I'm acting this way. This is what I'm going through, because there's no need for that. But how can we avoid that in the future so that way we're not in these hypocritical stages of seeing someone have a rough day? And how do we recognize it so we can move with compassion and kindness? So the first thing that we need to do is release judgment. This can be very, very difficult because we are conditioned to point blame, right? There's a pothole in the road. Oh, it's our taxes' fault. It's the government's fault. Like, there's a pothole in the road and it's on your road home. Like, what's stopping you from throwing some sand in it? Literally nothing stopping you from doing that, except for maybe the traffic. Be safe. Or maybe the light in your office that you work at is flickering and it's driving you absolutely crazy, and you're like, well, management should know about that. Well, maybe no one's told management. You could be that person. Or your barista, you're getting coffee for your boss, it's not even for you, and the barista just has an attitude. And you're like, oh, well, they should just do their jobs. Like, maybe their dog died that morning. That is one of the greatest lessons that I ever learned in school. Was my teacher in middle school named Crystal. She is amazing. Compass Montessori in Golden, this little shout out there. We had a whole week that we talked about just this idea, and the focal point was, what if their dog died? How are you supposed to go on the rest of your day knowing fully well that you're going to have to come home and handle it? Or maybe you were late because you were trying your best to handle it. You can't afford the vet. Like, are you going to get it cremated? Are you going to bury it? Are you going to throw them in the trash? Like, that is weight. That is really, really, really heavy. And that's not getting into the nuances and the complexity of just human existence. One dirty look and one rude remark could totally trigger you something that happened long ago in your childhood. Like, that could result in a very bad day. So that barista, what if their dog died? Okay, they're being a little bit nasty, they're having a bad attitude, but they're really not doing anything directly to you. They're not calling you a name. You're not engaging hysterically. Okay, so carry on. I really hope that you have a better day. Or I hope that you really have a good day, or someone says something kind to you, or just give them a good tip. A tipping culture is toxic in and of itself, don't get me wrong, but if you have that to expendable cash, that might really support them. Maybe then they can go get their dog cremated. So there's a balance here with releasing this judgment, because when we're releasing judgment and choosing not to judge people, we are now becoming vulnerable in a sense to other people's judgment. We're going to be a little bit more aware of it because we're paying attention to our own reactions. Like, okay, this is not something that's serving me anymore. This is not something that I want to bring out into the space. So you're going to have a heightened awareness, which now means you might start noticing other people being more judgmental of you because you are just generally aware of it. It's like the yellow car phenomenon. You don't think there's any yellow cars, you start thinking about yellow cars, suddenly now you see lots of yellow cars. It's the law of the universe, or however you want to word it. There's going to be this awkward threshold that you're going to have to move through while you're releasing this judgment to start accepting some judgment and recognizing, okay, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I was being a little bit rude for no reason. Or dismissing their judgment of you just as much as you are releasing your judgment of others. How about that? That is hard work. Recognizing that it's not all about you. Again, the person that could be judging you, maybe their dog died. And that caused them to lose every sense of control in the universe. And the only thing that they can control right now is the environment. And if they want to bring bad vibes, that is their control. They are in power here. You don't have to accept that. It's like, wow, I'm really sorry that you feel that way today. I'm not going to be engaging with you while you're like that right now. If you start to feel better or you need something later, please let me know. Move on. Remove yourself from the situation. Or just ignore it. You know, sometimes that's the best thing that we can do. Is just like, not worth my time. Okay, so now you've moved past this threshold of seeing the judgment at you and being like, wow, that felt gross. Now it's gone. We all good. Bopping around, having yourself a good day. Everyone else seems to be having a good day. Wow, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I'm here with you. I see you. I'm showing you respect here. I am honoring your healing. What's next? Well, you can start asking for help. You know, if you are on your own healing journey and you're having a hard time being met with the kindness that you need while you're on this path, acknowledge it. Be vocal. Like, this is what I'm working on right now. That's some vulnerability. It's hard to do that. But as soon as you start to get comfortable with these waters, you're like, okay, well, the vulnerability is right here. I'm just going to step into it. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to own it. I'm going to express it and see what happens. In my own experience working through these steps, I have come to realize that as soon as I vocalize to someone and I'm vulnerable, like, this is what I'm going through today. I am having a hard time. How are you? I have been met with the same amount of vulnerability. And I realized that, like, hi, how are you? Good. And you? Good. I don't have those conversations anymore. Someone asks me how I am. I'm like, yeah, my uncle passed away and I'm having a really hard time with his grief. Otherwise, I'm pretty good. How are you? Like, oh, my kid's super sick and I had to get a babysitter, which is super expensive. And I don't really know like how I'm going to recover that except for get more hours, which is going to keep me away from my kid even more. Yeah, but aside from that, pretty good. Sweet. All right, now we're in the same playing field. We see how we're feeling. As soon as you step into this state of vulnerability, you start receiving more vulnerability as well. And you're creating this level playing field of just accepting that, like, we're humans. Shit happens. And it might suck. It's really that simple. Okay, so we got that under the belt now, right? We're working with the vulnerability. We're moving through it. We don't care. Someone's like, oh, well, my uncle died too. Maybe you shouldn't feel that way right now. Like, cool. That's how you felt. This is how I am feeling. Dismiss. We good. So that brings us to the next step. How do we find this balance between dismissal and, what is the word I wrote? Patience, right? You can accept a lot from people, especially when you are practicing this. Cat furs, always. I lost my train of thought a little bit. So dismissal and patience. This is a very fine line that we're going to be writing, because as soon as we're stepping into this vulnerability, it'll be really easy to just be accepting of whatever people are throwing at you. Please don't do that. They are, regardless of how forgiving you are or how patient you are, you still deserve respect. You are allowed to put boundaries up, and that is not being rude. That is being very much yourself. That is you expressing your vulnerability in a way that results in positive boundaries. Boundary setting. Wow. So how do we balance this out? Okay, so someone is working on their healing journey. They've been really vulnerable with you, that they are working through this super, super difficult thing that you really can't relate to, but you're trying to be patient. And they keep lashing out at you. They've called you a couple names. You've been kind of like, okay, well, they told me how they were feeling this morning. I think that I should just be open-minded and accept it. Okay, it happens once. Express that didn't feel very good. Can we not have that in my space again? Or maybe just let it go. Second time they lash out, they're calling you names, they're being rude. Oh, okay. That really doesn't feel good. Okay, now you can make an absolute choice of like, you can honor their healing while not being around them. That is okay. You can also express that to them, like, hey, like, I know you're having a hard time, but I'm having a hard time on my own. I think it's best for my space to not be around this right now. Please do it in a kind way. It is really easy to turn this into, oh, bless your heart kind of thing. We're not doing that. Please actually be kind, be compassionate while you are removing yourself from the situation. If they still choose to disrespect it, now you can get a little bit sassy. No, it's okay. So getting a little bit deeper into it. What if someone in your family space is going through this and they keep being rude, but they keep acknowledging it? It doesn't even have to be your family space. Let's just remove that and let's say it's anybody in your space at all. They're healing, they're struggling, they've been a little bit rude, and they keep apologizing. They're just like, I'm really sorry. I recognize that my behavior was really unfair to you. I'm working on that. It happens again. You're like, what the heck? That doesn't feel good. Okay, they apologize. I see how that affected you. I'm really sorry. I've been working on this behavior. I'm really working on self-reflecting so that way this doesn't happen anymore. And you're like, okay. Again, they lash out. They're being rude. This is the 3 times rule. Only accept the same apology for the same thing 3 times. Otherwise, they are not being honest. They're not being genuine. They're not doing the work that they need to be doing authentically to respect you and your boundaries. They might be very genuine to themselves. Like, they might really be working very hard on this and it's something they're really struggling with, but you do not need to tolerate it. You don't have to sit there and be patient for them to get their act together. You can remove yourself from the situation 3 times. Especially if it is the exact same thing. They've called you a name 3 different times and apologized each time? Nope. At this point, it doesn't feel honest. I'm sorry. I can't be around you right now. You can hit me up later when you're feeling a little bit more in control of your reactivity, but otherwise, I am good on that. So another little aspect I kind of skipped on over here was when you ask for help and you're acknowledging your vulnerability and you're being open about that, asking for help, and as soon as you start asking for help, you are opening the door for being asked for help. There's this like kind of 2-way street that you're opening and accessing as soon as you open that vulnerability. It is okay to say no. Just because someone did something for you does not obligate you to return the favor. You can acknowledge it and be like, hey, like, I just don't have the energy for that. I'm really grateful that you felt comfortable enough to ask me for that favor, but right now I just don't think that I can do that in a way that's going to be beneficial to you or your healing process. That's okay. Like, if you start accepting and being the yes man, like, I'm healing and I can help the healed people, or healing with the, whatever. Like, that's like that toxic positivity kind of thing going in, and you could mess some people up. You could mess yourself up. So please be mindful of that. Make sure you're putting yourself and your energy first before you step into anybody else's shoes. They don't need you, especially if they don't fit. I do want to add another note for healers particularly. So if you are a healer, you do smudging, you do cleansing, readings, Reiki, whatever, I think it's very, very important for us to not put ourselves on a high horse. I think it's really important for us to be open and vulnerable about what we're working on, as even with our clients. Like I think the Western world is super against that, especially if you work in like a clinical kind of space, whether you're a therapist or something along those lines. We are told to leave our stuff completely away. We are only there to serve. Yes, but I think that it is important for our clients to understand where we're coming from, especially if you feel like you're going to be having a hard time showing up in your full and authentic self, that you vocalize like, hey, the whole, hi, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. Like, no. How are you? Hi. Yeah, no, I'm actually had a rough morning this morning, but I'm getting it together. I'm going to just take 3 breaths for myself real quick here, and then I will be here entirely for you. Is that something you're comfortable with? Like, it is okay to be vulnerable about that, because I think a lot of people, you'd be surprised. I do this very commonly with my clients, is I'm just very open. There was one time I was super lightheaded after my yoga class right before a session, and I literally asked my client, I was like, I don't feel like I can work on you properly right now. I haven't had enough to eat. Is it okay that I eat my breakfast burrito while you're sharing with me what's going on? And she was like, oh yeah, dude, eat your breakfast burrito. I want to make sure you're good too. And it was like, I felt weird eating my burrito in my session, but it was like, I was not going to be able to do my job properly if I wasn't going to be able to do that. Like eat my burrito. And all of my clients have been very, very accepting of that, and honestly have given me better reviews because of it. They're like, wow, she's really open and honest about where she's at and not trying to front at all. Like, there's this now open communication. There's this trust. There's this vulnerability that has been placed on the table, so that way they know that they can act that way with me too. Because as soon as we put ourselves on a high horse, not only are we lying to our clients on some days, but we are also putting ourselves in a box and placing judgment on ourselves when we don't fit inside that box. That can become a very vicious cycle. Please be open about what you're working on, whether you're a healer or not. I truly believe that if more of us can practice this vulnerability and being open with the things that we have going on, we don't have to share our whole life story, you know. I know there's oversharers out there, there's over talkers out there. Please put a little bit of a lid on it so you don't scare the people away from actually helping you and being there for you. Just hey, I don't feel good. That's all you need to really meet that level playing field of communication with other people, especially strangers in the world. I love you. Live spicy. I'll see you on the other side. And TengDios.